Yes, I'm back. What a cracker. And we've got Liam Mower, who's currently in the Nutcracker at the Sadlerswells, coming in later on. It's 11:06. This is BBC London 94.9. I'm Jenny Barnett and I'm schmoozing to Edmundo Ross. Oh, why not? We are, however, going to be talking about children and children's books. If you've got children to buy for this Christmas and need a last-minute gift, what about buying them a book? Joining me now to delve into the myriad of publications, I have Kate Agnew from the Children's Bookshop in Muswell Hill. Good morning.
Hello.
And also on the line, I have Charlie Higson, author of The Fear. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning to you.
Now, I want to talk to you throughout, but I want both of you to listen to when we went out on the streets, because we were talking about books with kids, and Patrick, Enzo, Jasmine and Alice from Year 2 at St Martin of Porres Primary School in Bounds Green, they were both ages 6 and 7, told our reporter Anna O'Neill what they're reading at the moment.
I like, and I'm still reading it, The Magician's Nephew. Stuff like The Secret Seven and stuff like that. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows 2.
That sounds like a film.
Yeah, but I got the book of it.
And so what about you two girls? What are your favourite books
We
at the moment?
both love The Worst Witch. We love them. Because it's about a witch and she's the worst one at school, but she has a different cat to everyone. They go on different adventures. But sometimes she's good and sometimes she's bad. I like The Famous Five. I like The Famous Five. It's just fun because they go on these adventures and then they take away bad people and they get police. And I like the adventures. I normally do it on YouTube as well as reading the books.
Oh my God! You see, they're so moralistic, children. They want the good to good and the bad to be bad. And Charlie Higson, let me just say that your new book, The Fear, I am 62 and I was too frightened to take it to bed.
Yeah, I'm not sure I should be on this programme. My book's about adult zombies eating children like that, I'm afraid.
We'll come back to you in a moment, because Anna O'Neill spoke to slightly older children. Jenny, Zara, Matthew and Jack are in Year 6 at St Martin of Porres in Bounds Green, so they're between ages 10 and 11, and they told BBC London 94.9 what books they were into.
I'm reading Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. It's one of the books from Alice in Wonderland, and Alice has gone through the mirror. She meets lots of strange things like plum cake and legs of mutton.
I'm reading Victorian Ghost Stories and it's really good. It's about stories that have happened in Victorian times and how people think they've seen ghosts and mysterious things that have happened that have never been solved.
Two good ones. One's called The Enemy by Charlie Higson, and one is The Stuff of Nightmares by Mallory Blackman.
The Demon Thief by Darren Chan, and it's about a boy who his brother gets kidnapped, so he has to follow a demon.
Quite a few boys like these books called Cherub, and some people used to read Alex Rider's, but we don't really read them anymore.
Charlie Higson, you were in the Hall of Fame.
I made the list. It's made my weekend.
Well, I only know you as a very funny man on the One Show and various other things I've seen you in, but I didn't know that you'd written. Well, I kind of did in the back of my head. You wrote the James Bond thing. How did you get into the Grizzle area?
Well, I mainly wrote books that I thought my own boys would like, which was one of the main reasons I was offered the James Bond job, and I just thought this is fantastic to be able to write some sort of classic adventure stories for kids. And it's interesting, that first bunch of kids talking about things like The Famous Five and that idea of right and wrong, and of course James Bond fits in completely with that, and I was trying to tap in. My books are set in the 30s, so I was trying to tap into that sort of sense of adventure and fun that used to be in those books. But then as my boys got older, they got seriously into horror, so I thought, I've done thrillers, let's do horror now.
How do you define horror? What is it about horror that kids love so much?
I don't know, but they do, and it's not just boys. Boys and girls, they love sort of grisly, gory stuff. I don't think a kid would articulate it, but I think kids like horror, and it's good for kids because it's a way of dealing with some quite adult concerns, but in a fantasy way. be attacked by zombies or monsters or demons, but it does deal with things like death and disease and change and aging and fear and being scared of things. So I think it's good for kids to kind of learn how to deal with that. But I think certainly for boys, they just like to see lots of blood splattered everywhere.
I got thrown out of an English class because I was sitting in the front row of English, and I was reading a book that my brother had made me read. About a girl who was lying on a slab, and a rat was put on her, and a bowl was strapped over her, and the only way the rat could get out was to gnaw his way through. And I was screaming, not realising that the teacher was looking at me, and I did actually get hauled out. So I have that propensity too, where if I think about it now, it makes me go, yuck. Now the Fear is a big, thick book, and it is unequivocally horrible.
Well, that's what I set out to do. I figured, I've always tried in all my books to put in passages that are going to stick in people's minds, because all us writers, we want to be remembered, and they think, oh, that's the book where that happens. It's like you'll always remember that story about the rat. I mean, so I thought, well, if I could really scare some kids, scar them for life, then they would always remember the moment they read my book.
Is the book published already?
Yes, the Fear is. It came out in September. And it's the third part of a kind of zombie series that I'm writing at the moment.
The third part. Does that mean we're going to have more?
Well, I'm planning 7 at the moment.
Fantastic. Can I just ask, have you got one favourite grisly story that just thrills you every time you think of it?
What, that someone else...
Well, either somebody else that did it to you, but certainly the one that you've done yourself, that you've written yourself.
Well, I mean, it's probably from one of my adult books, because I tried to do the same thing in them. There was an episode in one of my adult books where the villain was killing this character by stamping a biro into his ear. And people who read that book, they seem to always remember that incident.
You see, I shouldn't laugh. And given that we're going through such terrible times that we see awful things happening on our screen, and now the newsreader says to us endlessly, this may contain scenes that are worse than in Charlie Higson's books. Do you think it is correct that we should frighten the living daylights out of people?
Well, I think, on the whole, luckily, most people do live quite settled, unfrightening lives. Obviously, awful things happen. But, fear is one of our major emotions, and experiencing fear and surviving is very thrilling. That's why people go on, scary roller coaster rides, because it's that idea at the end of it, oh, I survived it, and, you're pumped up, you're excited, you've got adrenaline flushing through you, and it is a really, it is thrilling. So, I think that's a lot of the thing of reading books, is horror books, is that same kind of thing.
I think, do you do frightening things in your life, or do you just sit in your stuff?
No, I'm a writer. I sit in my tiny little room at home trying to think up horrible things to put in books.
Well, you do it very well, my lovely man. Listen, Charlie Higson, I wish you well with the third part of the 7 part of your horror books. Thank you so much for joining me on Sunday morning. That's Charlie Higson, author of The Fear. Now, I'm going to go